Well, I wonder how many of you are aware of the fact that we had a very interesting reunion take place over this weekend. Mike Ensley, whose name is long been associated with Pensacola and now is working with the Springfest Revival, has joined us to tell us about it. He's also a reporter for the Studer Community Institute and Pensacola Today, and a rare individual. An entire section of Escambia County has been named after him, right, Mike?
No, not at all.
My mistake.
Well, we're working on that.
Yeah,
get it done.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, the reunion is the men and women who staged the first sit-ins in Pensacola here back in 1961 in an attempt to speed the integration process. And as most of us that lived through that time know, it wasn't exactly a smooth transition by any matter of means. Still quite interesting to think about some of these folks that did what they had to do. Mike, tell us a little bit about the history of the sit-ins themselves. As I recall, they started up in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Right, they started up in Greensboro at a Woolworth's lunch counter. That was the first that kind of sparked this whole movement across the nation. In '61, it came to Pensacola. The NAACP Youth Council at that time here in town decided that was the way they needed to go as well. One of the people that was honored on Saturday was the Reverend William Curtis Dobbins, who kind of led that effort. He was the pastor of the St. Paul's Methodist Church here, and he had actually come from Montgomery to Pensacola to pastor that church, where he had been a neighbor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So he trained directly with Dr. King and learned, nonviolence and how to really make a difference and make some social change.
Where was the reunion held this weekend?
It was right down on Palafox, at the corner of Palafox and Garden, right where the Woolworth stood. And actually they unveiled a historical marker there,
right.
that denotes that's what happened there back in the 60s.
Right. And as we said, it was a reasonably peaceful protest, but things were pretty tense, as I recall. And this wasn't a one-day event. This went on and off all across the South for many months.
Oh yeah, it was a long process. They started in February. I think it was not until late summer, early fall that actual desegregation happened, and it was kind of a domino effect across the country that it just sort of fell. But no, the people there. I spoke with Della Redmond when I was doing a story about this. She was there. She was 17 at the time when she was participating in the sit-ins, and she said that they would sit at the counter and people would, some people were poked with knives. Some people were spit on. She herself was spit on. People were sprayed with insecticides. I mean, it was just really, really a lot of resistance to what they were trying to do.
Well, of course, integration back in the early 60s was still an unbelievable event for many folks who lived in the South, no question about that. This particular attempt to speed the process of integration through nonviolence, of course, was pretty frustrating to the folks who wanted to maintain the status quo because they wouldn't fight back.
Right. And a lot of that, when I was talking to some of them on Saturday, a lot of them said, we wondered, did you ever want to fight back? Did you ever have the urge? And they said, no, we had learned nonviolence, and we were kind of chosen because we were the type of people who wouldn't fight back. Miss Redmond said some of her friends didn't participate in the sit-ins because they knew that they would become angry and try to fight back. So it was all very, they were all very well trained, and they all had a mission when they went in there. So, and
it did eventually succeed. That and the efforts of many others. Other parts of the country, the efforts were considerably more violent. I think Pensacola was fortunate in that regard that we never had the level of violence, I don't think, that occurred in other areas of the country. So this reunion took place Saturday. And, Mike, I have to apologize. We really wanted to speak to you Friday, but we were tied up with our town hall meeting. Nevertheless, I think it is important to mark this particular event and to let people know that it took place.
Yeah, and Blab TV now, we've decided, we're going to produce a documentary, a 30-minute piece with interviews from some of the folks that were actually there, with Dr. Sarah Jonas, the student at UWF, who's now working for a nonprofit in Dallas. But she actually is the one who kind of got this movement started to get this historical marker placed. She did her dissertation on the sit-ins. So we're going to talk with all of them and do a 30-minute special about the actual sit-in events of the 60s.
Well, I know it must have been a moving event for everybody concerned, talking about something over 50 years ago that occurred right here in our community.